We don't travel to escape life. We travel so life doesn't escape us. And it's long past time we got back out there. So where to? Dulles International Airport. Let your imagination soar. Book now at flydulles.com/nonstop.
For me, Missouri State is where it all started. I came here with dreams. You probably did too, or you probably will. This place, these people, faculty, staff, and the friends I made along the way helped me get there and reach my wildest dreams. This is the right place, and this is the right time to make your Missouri statement.
This is Ralph Rensler, director of the Smithsonian Bicentennial Folklife Festival. If you enjoyed the festival, you'll be interested in this invitation.
Ladies and gentlemen, an opportunity like this cannot be taken for granted.
This evening, we are going to be beating our hearts out for you all, so I want to see people enjoying themselves. So get up and feel the music and do something about it, okay?
This event is a right of cultural democracy.
We have many, many partners, you included. I encourage you to stand alongside with us as we travel this journey year after year.
Welcome, everybody. We are coming live to you from the 2023 Smithsonian Folklife Festival. For 50 years, the festival has been on the National Mall to explore, exchange, and engage the power of culture and creativity in our lives today. The Smithsonian Folklife Festival is produced by the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage and presented in partnership with the National Service. The festival is made possible by people like you. If you'd like to make a donation to this wonderful project, then you can go to festival.si.edu. This program we're coming to you with is Ozark's Faces and Facets of a Region, and the program is supported in part by the Missouri State University, Missouri Division of Tourism, Arkansas Tourism, University of Arkansas, Experience Fayetteville, Wingate Foundation, Committee of 100 for the Ozark Folk Center, Ozark Beer Company, Crystal Bridges and Art, and Social Impact Accelerator Partnership, and the Missouri Folk Arts Program. The program received federal support from the Latino Initiatives Pool, administered by the National Museum of the American Latino, the Asian Pacific American Initiatives Pool, and administered by the Asian Pacific American Center and the Smithsonian American Women's History Pool. In-kind support comes from Montana Cans and Mountain Valley Spring Water. If there's anyone here in the audience that has accessibility issues, there is support for that, so just let someone know. We're really excited today to bring you a program about women leaders in plant knowledge with Maile Auterson from Community Gardens in Springfield, Marla Seager, who is on streaming in from Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Ozarks. She's a farmers market organizer. Mia Jones, who's here on stage with us, who is an urban farmer with Soul Fresh Farms, and Hemmelgarn, who's streaming in, and she's an agroforestry program director. So herbalism and plant knowledge are what keep many of us healed, safe, and fed. And in this hybrid session, we're going to talk together about the ways that women are contributing actively today in that. So first I want to introduce to you Maile Auterson, and she is the founder and executive director of the Springfield Community Gardens. Under her guidance, the program has grown to 18 gardens, 2 urban farmers markets, and 1 hospital farm. Next to her is Mia Jones. She's the founder of both Soul Fresh Farms and United Community Change, and she works to increase healthier food access in underserved communities. On screen is Marla Seager, who is the president of Tahlequah Farmers Market, and she has pioneered a school program that promotes cooking with locally grown foods and introducing school-aged children to buying from farmers markets. And Hannah Hemmelgarn, also on screen, is assistant program director at the University of Missouri Center for Agroforestry. She also is working together with the Osage Nation to bring some of those skills together. And she's just passionate about using the forest products to, into our food system. So maybe each of you might just tell a little bit, Maile, starting with you, about the kind of the context you're working in.
Sure. So our community garden project is very much community-based. We try to use asset-based community development to get our community together to grow their own healthy local food. As a result, in 10 years, we have grown from 1 community garden to 18, and we have a large hospital farm as well, and a test kitchen. And so we're really just trying to recapture a resilient community and start our own local food economy again after really losing it to corporate agriculture.
Yeah, and what I forgot to say is that both Maile and me are from Springfield, Missouri.
Yeah.
So, and one of the ways it relates to the themes of our program is one of the themes is about connections to land.
Yes.
So these things are all happening in different parts of the Ozarks or very close to the Ozarks. And I think the Ozarks is a place that's got still feels a lot of connection to the land and to growing things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mia, do you want to tell a little bit about the kind of the context that you're working in with your urban farm?
Yes. So I got started with this lovely lady beside me, Maile Auterson, with Springfield Community Gardens. And through our partnership, I was able to learn and grow and then also develop my own ideas for what I wanted for my culture and the people that I represent. So Soul Fresh Farms came about as a way to develop my own family and create wealth and heritage for my own family, gain access to land, and then United Community Change, an extension of my passion to also teach that to other people who are like me, are going through the same things. And so most of those are disenfranchised people and also marginalized individuals who may not have access to local foods, may not know about local foods, and we just want to integrate them back into agriculture so that we can rebuild our culture.
Oh, thank you, Mia. Marla, do you want to tell us a little bit about the context that you're coming to us from?
Well, I'm coming from a farmer's market point of view. I run a farmer's market in Tahlequah, and we are in a major growth spurt right now. Last year we had about 25 to 30 vendors that started out with this, and this year we had a maximum. We have a waiting list now, and we have 50 involved. So it's really interesting to see how people are wanting the fresh produce nowadays. Mm-hmm. I think COVID was a really big turning point in people wanting fresh vegetables.
Thank you, Marla. How about you, Hannah? You want to give us a little context for the situation you're working in?
Yeah. So I'm living in my hometown, came back here for work with the Center for Agroforestry, which is at the University of Missouri. And the Center for Agroforestry has been around for 25 years now. So we have some of the longest standing research trials for tree crops. And my work here, though, is really rooted in my connection to this place and my love for these native plants that give us so much. So it's the gist of it.
Well, thank you. So, Maile, where do you see how these gardening traditions cross over and come together?
Everybody eats, and everybody has a story about what they eat or someone they know who grows really good food, really good heartfelt memories, whether it's a grandpa or a neighbor. We just all fall in love with our food in some way and really hold it deep in our hearts. And so I think that is the commonality. How we grow the food, that's the most fun thing to talk about. And I think it's why our gardens have just exploded, because everybody has that food story. I can give you an example. Our Congolese neighbors, they love the pumpkin leaves. We happen to like the pumpkins. And we love to laugh about how we've learned different ways to eat the same plants, right? Or roselle and hibiscus. That's a wonderful bitter melon. It makes great bitter melon soup. So we have these stories and they bond us. Our story is in our food, always. And so we just have such a nice time building community around that. And again, bringing it back to relocalizing our food economy so that we can lower carbon emissions and take care of our planet.
Thank you. Mia, where do you see kind of the crossovers of gardening traditions in your area and with these other women?
With other women specifically? I think gardening, like Maile said, it brings us together, and it allows us to understand where we overlap, It brought me and Maile together. And it also opens the door for communication and conversation within our communities, so that we can be stronger in that sense. I feel like that's really where gardening helps me, and then also helps others, because we get to learn about one another. We get to really understand our backgrounds, when we come together in the garden, and learn each other's traditions and actually talk more about it and teach others like we're doing now. So
wonderful, thank you. Marla, you and I have talked about the many different traditions that come together in your farmers market, which is a award-winning farmers market. Do you want to talk about some of working with that kind of situation where you've got lots of different traditions coming together in one place that people then can access?
Oh, it's wonderful. The stories that people share with each other, the recipes that they share with each other. We have an area of our market where we do some demonstrations of what to do with things. Years ago, we had one vendor who had some patty pan squash, and she couldn't sell it for anything. Nobody knew what to do with it. And we started doing some demonstrations and sampling, and she started selling out on it. So that told us that that's what we needed to do. And we have carried that on. As Sasha said, we have a farm to school program, and we created this kind of program. Normally a farm to school is that the school goes out and buys food from the farmers. we created a different kind of farm to school program where we take a mini market to these individual elementary schools, and we target the third graders, and they get 12 veggie bucks to come out and go shopping. We have really encompassed that program because so many teachers came out and told me that I had no idea how many of those children had never seen a fresh vegetable before. So we're changing that. You don't get out of the third grade in Tahlequah, Oklahoma without knowing what a fresh zucchini is. So it's very rewarding to be able to share that with our next generation.
Thank you, Marla. Hannah, you come more from, I think, an academic setting, but you were creating some really strong connections. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there are so many ankles. But I mean, the relationships happening here are so beautiful, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch with all of you. But, agroforestry, for those who aren't familiar, it's a relatively new word, but the practices that we're promoting, these perennial polycultures with native productive plants, these practices have been on this landscape for thousands of years. And the plants that we work with have been stewarded here by the peoples that have been here and are still here preceding colonization and since. So that connection, community connection, is really important to us. And unfortunately, Missouri does not recognize any native lands in this state. But we are partnering with Osage Nation, as you mentioned, to try to reestablish and reconnect Osage youth, especially, to their ancestral lands. So that's a really important part of what we do. We also work with people who are innovative farmers here, and many of them are women, since that's the topic. I'm just focusing in on that. It's interesting, actually, some of my work a long time ago in academia focused on how women, because of the way we have evolved, caring for children and, being together with other women, processing food, being in the garden, have this capacity for really complex agricultural systems. And we're seeing that on the landscape. I mean, it's not just limited to women, but we are working with farmers who are ready to take some risks and bring in more complexity into their farming spaces. And that is really jump-starting this sort of peer network that helps other farmers see what's possible with these more regenerative landscapes.
Thank you. So when you think about particularly gardening as a way, or not necessarily a way, but that community is built also through gardening, like Hannah was saying and some of you saying, Maile, especially you as a person who's been really active in creating so many gardens in Springfield, can you talk about that connection, particularly with women, in building community with gardenings?
Sure. So first of all, we need to all be connected back to the land. A lot of the problems that we have are because of the fact that we've lost our heart for the land and being good stewards of the land. And, my father, he lived to be 100, and I'm a fourth generation Ozarks farmer, and he taught me how to take care of the land and how to forage in the woods and how to be a good neighbor, right? And so I think that that's really our success, is that we just continue to be good neighbors and share the food that we have. We've donated over 2 million pounds of the bounty that we have. And we have about 50 workshops a year teaching people how to grow their own food regeneratively. And a lot of that's agroforestry, which I love being with Hannah today, because, the Ozarks have some beautiful woods, and those trees sequester a lot of carbon. They're very important. And, really the woods are really important in your cities too. So I don't want you to forget about that. But women take care of the land and they take care of the children. And so we're just really doing what we already know how to do. And I don't really know if I answered your question, but what we're doing is we're taking care of the land that's been given to us, because in Springfield we have a lot of green space. And we've actually been included in the master plan for the city to relocalize our food economy and to divert food waste from our landfill, right? So that's, some of the most expensive land in our town is the hospital land, and they let us put in a farm. So yay for that, right? We get to do that. We're grassroots. And so everything changes with the people. It's about the people. And the people are the ones that can really influence and be instigators of change. And that's what our town's doing. And any town our size can do that. We're only about 300,000 people, about 189,000 proper in the city. And so every town in America can do what we're doing, and the women can lead that.
Thank you. Mia, I know that you garden with your mother and you've got your daughter with you. Can you talk about just your urban farm and how that all works together?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I started with United Community Change, and our mission is just to connect marginalized individuals to the land, to their homes, and to the community. And in the garden, that happens a lot. They're getting connected to the land where there's a lot of healing going on. And I introduced my mom to gardening, and that was a task because, for African Americans particularly, there's a huge past in history where it comes to agriculture and what our history or connection was to it, and a lot not positive, but however, there's so much positive in the land, and I think that the garden now is really cultivating that positive back into African American and minority lives. In the garden, my mom leads Springfield Community Garden, Westside Garden, and I led the Pacific, and I'm sorry, it makes me cry because it's so amazing, the growth that has happened in the gardens for my family and for other families that are coming over. There was one black lady that came, and I'm sorry, that I just, it was great because she started telling us, we were really excited, and we were telling her, you can be here, as much as you want, come help, whatever you need. We're going to assist you and help you and teach you just like we were taught, or that we learned on our own, because a lot of our learning has just been getting in there and just trying things out. And she told us, until I came to this garden, I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I had a place. And the garden has just been, for a lot of different women that we've seen, and a lot of different families that we've come across, a place of healing, especially for the marginalized communities, and feeling like that they can or they are allowed to be in agriculture, and there is a way to be empowered and start something for their own families that they can pass down. So for my family, it's so much hope for my family, that we can do this, something to bring us together, also something to make us stronger, and also something that could help us build wealth, and then also help the communities that surround us.
Thank you. Yeah. Marla, what would you add to this?
Well, from a farmer's market aspect, I look at that I'm trying to create a community or change my community, appreciate food more. And for granted for so long, the farmers are not valued like they should be. And so I'm trying to change that so that my community meets all these vendors, all these farmers, and gets their stories about where they're from and why they're doing what they're doing. And it just creates a community, more of a community. When you know your farmer and you know where you're getting your food rather than just going to the grocery store. It really empowers and helps build my community. And that is part of my goal. It's to help bring my community around food more.
Yeah, I know that really makes a difference for me when I buy my food from a co-op and or a farmer's market, and I'm really connecting with the person who's growing it. How about you, Hannah?
Yeah, for all of these things, there are so many layers, but I'm really glad that Maile brought up the unique kind of context and relationships that people have with the Ozarks and the ecosystems here. You know, there's been such a strong tradition of foraging, of wildcrafting, of responsible harvesting from wild places for so long. And, you know, as I enter into this work in being really connected to the communities here, it's important for me to understand the relationships that people have with the plants and the place. And, you know, there are families that have been here for a long time, and it's really deep rooted, and it's connected to food sovereignty and food security. And, you know, I think this kind of touches on what everyone has been saying, that it can be so empowering for people to have that opportunity to reconnect with what's here already. And some of that is related to land access, and some of that is just connecting with what's there. You know, the work that all of these amazing women are doing already is making so much accessible that hasn't been. So gratitude for the work that all of you are doing. I just want to continue building on that, especially thinking about these native perennial plants. That's really where the passion is for me, and just the abundance that's out there.
Thank you, Hannah. Maile, you founded the Springfield Community Gardens, and it's really grown, and I'm sure you've seen quite a few challenges along the way. If somebody was wanting to either found or extend their community gardens in a situation like yours, what are some of the challenges that maybe might come up and that you have some words to say about?
Sure. So we kind of joke internally that you have people who are really good at gardening and growing, and then you have people who are really good with people, but they're not always the same people. And so what we try to do is find a champion in a neighborhood who is really social and good at leading volunteers, but then they have a person also as a co-leader who is really good at growing plants. And once in a while you will find someone who does both, but it seems in my experience of 13 years that you really need both of those types of people to have a successful community garden. And then the other challenge is liability insurance for landowners. What we find is most people want to say yes. They want to say yes, they want to be a part of what we're doing, and they want to be a part of community. And so we always try to figure out, what do you need to be engaged with us? And often that will be a land lease. It might be temporary. It could be a 3-year land lease or 5-year. It might be liability insurance. We have an umbrella liability of $2 million in case someone were to be hurt. And then just really paying attention to what our neighbor needs before we talk about what we need. And that seems to be a successful model. And having rules, right? We actually looked on the internet, and we love Denver Urban Gardens. Shout out to Denver Urban Gardens if you're listening, because they have it figured out, and we really copy a lot of their policy and plans because we did not know what we were doing. I had never been in a community garden. It just sounded like a great thing to do, and a way to care for the land. And so those are a few of the challenges: the liability insurance, land lease, and making sure that you have the right personalities in the garden for it to be successful.
Thank you. Me as an urban farmer, and I think that's a area that's growing and the need is there, what are some challenges you faced and some things that you might offer that have helped you through that?
I think as you know, going from gardening into like really finding my passion in actual farming, I immediately wanted to be a real farmer and have land. And but upon going through the processes and I also have a background in real estate, so going through the process of trying to obtain land and realizing how I wasn't prepared, or the resources that I didn't have in order to access land, or the knowledge that I didn't have in order to just get land donated to me, it kind of pushed me into a more urbanized farm. And I decided that, hey, if I cannot get my hands on land and live out this passion, what do I do? A lot of people in a marginalized community would just give up, and then they would just go to a regular job and then just do that. But for me, that wasn't an option. And so I did more research, and I found microgreens, which I decided to specialize in because I didn't need land in order to do that. I was still connected to the earth and to plants, and then also I would be able to establish that within my own home. And now through networking and through having more customers and getting more exposure, I'm able to expand into a commercial space, which even is a benefit for me because I can teach others how to get started that way. And so for Soul Fresh Farms, we're utilizing or capitalizing on the urban method in order to raise the funds and get prepared for an actual acreage farm. So yeah, it's just the obstacles are there, and financing. There's obstacles, like I said, and knowing how to reach out to the right systems or the right people to help guide you your way. And a lot of farming in the Ozarks is based on networking and personal family background relationships. So if you're an outside or you don't have those connections, because our farm market is kind of small as well. So then it's just an uphill battle, but there's a lot of ways to overcome. So for me, Soul Fresh Farms was overcoming and persevering past those obstacles. And so now we flourish just inside of a commercial building, and we look forward to that growth in that way. And then hopefully we can get back on our pathway to what you guys would think of like a regular farm or a small acreage or urban farm like what Maile does over at Springfield Community Gardens.
Thank you. Marla, you and I have talked some about challenges of founding a really good farmers market, and you are considered something of an expert for sure in Oklahoma. I know you talk about that a lot. What are some of the things that you would really want to emphasize right now?
Well, I think organization is extremely important when you're trying to do this. And as a person who's running a farmer's market, my biggest challenges are to create an environment for my vendors to sell to my customers. And that is ever evolving. Each year there are new challenges. The weather is a huge challenge for my vendors. We have dry spells that just are horrendous, like we're in right now. It's creating a trust. My vendors have to trust what I'm doing, what my board is doing, and we have to trust that they're doing what they're doing correctly. We have so many different programs that we participate in, and each one of the programs has different guidelines, and so it's getting both our vendors and our customers aware of what's going on. Tahlequah is in the we are the capital of the Cherokee Nation, and the Cherokee Nation has just developed a new WIC program. Most of the WIC programs, federal WIC programs, state WIC programs, are oriented to a grocery store because you have to be able to supply everything that's available in the WIC program. So my vendors have not been able to do that, able to participate in that. And so here recently, working with Chief Hoskins of the Cherokee Nation, they've developed a new WIC program for farmers markets. And I believe the first vouchers are going out this week. So that's going to enable a lot of our mothers to get fresh food for their children, and particularly low-income mothers to get fresh food for their children. I think that's very, very important. And we have this huge problem in our native community of diabetes. And so if we can help with fresh vegetables, yay, that's part of what I'm here for.
Thank you. Hannah, in creating or working in your agroforestry program, what are some of the challenges that come up that you'd like to maybe offer some wisdom on?
Yeah, I mean, I see every challenge as an opportunity, but there are some big ones. Land access has been mentioned more than once, and long-term relationship to the land is critical, especially for people who are wanting to grow perennial, long-lived plants, right? So it takes some time, in some cases, for trees to bear fruit or nuts. And if you don't have secure land access, it might not be possible to make that kind of investment. So the financing also, as has been mentioned, can be a challenge. Right now, in terms of land access and land transition, I think what's been quoted, the National Young Farmer Coalition has a really nice model showing this, that a land area the size of the Louisiana Purchase is in transition right now in the next 10 years, I think. So to me, that's terrifying in some ways because a lot of that land is being sold to developers. We're losing farmland faster than ever before. It also presents an opportunity for young people and people of color, disenfranchised people, as Mia has mentioned, to have access to that land. So we need to set up models for that to be a reality. And I'm really inspired by groups like Agrarian Trust. They're combining community land trusts and conservation land trusts in one so that there is that kind of access with protection. Or the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust is doing something similar. We need to see that here. There are several other challenges that are integrated into the focus of our research at the Center for Agroforestry, like the limited access to germplasm. And, most of the perennial crops we work with have not been developed or domesticated into horticultural crops. American elderberry is a good example of one that is quickly transitioning from a wild native plant to one that we're seeing planted in rows, in alley cropping, in productive buffers, and really coming into the awareness of consumers also. So there are all these sort of pieces, there are infrastructure barriers. There's the financing barrier that has been mentioned is also starting to shift. USDA has been investing a whole lot into what's called climate smart agroforestry practices. So we're seeing some of that shift, and I'm really excited for what's to come. We have some projects with a whole bunch of partners across the nation to help farmers, landowners, land stewards with technical assistance and financial assistance to get trees in the ground and to have that secure land access. So that's what's going on.
Thank you, Hannah. So we're getting near the end of our program, but this is all in the context of a focus on the Ozarks at the Smithsonian Festival, and each one of you have your own relationship and connection to the Ozarks. Can you tell me on this topic we're talking about, how does being in the Ozarks or connected or having an Ozark heritage, how is that, do you think, has that influenced or impacted you in your work with plants and gardening?
So definitely I am Ozarkian, 100%. And I think that really it's learning what's enough, having enough, and really understanding the importance of your food source for sure. And learning to work with what you have been given. The soil is not particularly good in the Ozarks. But at one time, we were the #1 producers of strawberries. We had the best peaches. We can grow a lot on this land that is not particularly always fertile in the Ozarks. So I think that has really formed my personality. And of course, the stories, as I've mentioned before, of my dad. Our family came from New Zealand in the late 1800s. I'm the 4th generation Ozarks farmer. And so I know those stories about my grandma and the women on the land and my grandparents on the land. And so that is really, it's become a part of who I am. I've become the land in and of itself as I've gotten older, just really realizing that we can be self-sufficient and take care of our neighbors with the food. Yeah.
Thank you. How about you, Mia?
Yeah, so I guess I want to say I'm Ozarkian, but it's hard to define, actually, as a marginalized person, who you are, what you represent, or how people place you, because a lot of marginalized individuals get told who they are and don't really get to really explore their true identities. However, my family from the Boot Heel in Hayti and Carruthersville, Missouri, I tell a story all the time how I remember my great-grandmother, which is my mom's grandmother. She was a farmer, also a slave, but coming out of slavery, she had owned a piece of land, and she had a wonderful peach tree that I remember I was like 5 years old that I could just grab and bite, and it's like the best peach I've ever tasted in my life, and I've never come across a peach that tastes like that again, and I wish and I hope that I do at one point. But, with just hearing stories of my mom and how she had to, I forget what they call when they hold the chickens by their neck and snack and do that stuff, that she had to learn how to do that. And also with my other grandmothers, like they taught us how, to tend to the land, how to farm, and how to do these little things that actually are just inbred in me, which is probably why I was brought back to this part of life. I think that, it just creates culture. Just the Ozark, just being in the Ozarks just helps me realize like who I am, and also bring other people to realize who they are and just kind of connect them to where they are, instead of just living day to day to be laborers and survivalists. A lot of people are just living like that. They're not really understanding. I mean, they can live in one place like Springfield, Missouri, and all they know about it is that this is where I work and this is what I do. But they don't really know like the community that surrounds them or what makes the place what it is. And I think that just being a part of it is what helps me do what I do and spread that message.
Thanks, Mia. Marla, you're right on the edge of the Ozarks, but has that impacted you?
Well, I say that we were the toes of the Ozarks. My father grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and during the Depression, and it was apples that kept his family alive. My grandfather and uncle had one of the first canning operations in Arkansas. And my father, when I was growing up, he had a huge garden, and that was and I played in it. I helped him. I got my appreciation for food from helping him with the garden. My mother worked in the school system, and so she had summers off, and so we spent the summers putting things up, canning and preserving the food so that we would have it for the rest of the year. I really attribute my love of gardening and of raising vegetables to my father.
Thank you.
He even had one of my stories that I tell about him is that he had a love for paper shell pecans, and yet in windy Oklahoma, they would break most of the time, and so they would not survive. So he grafted a paper shell pecan tree onto a walnut tree, and he was able to have his paper shell pecans.
Oh, yep, those pecans. We just have one more minute. I'm sorry we got such tight timing, Hannah.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll be brief. So I was born here and I'm from here, and it's the place I know best. Like I said, it's the reason why I'm doing this work. And similar to Marla's story, growing up, foraging, enjoying the abundance of berries that are just, there's so much, the pecans. There's so much out there that's gifted to us from the land. And I think, when you eat from the land, you become of the land. And that's certainly what's happened to me. So I'm here for the long haul. It's really important to me.
Thank you, everybody. And thanks the audience for being here. And I think that's it, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marla.